And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Welcome into RBLR Bandits here at RBLR Sports. My name is Eureka Wheeler, and with me along for this ride, and we've been here every damn week riding with the Bandits and riding with you, RBLR Nation. That is, of course, my main man. That is Zach Blaine. What's good, my guy?
What is going on, brother?
Buddy? Your
what is that an excited buddy I hear?
Your Tampa Bay Bandits are what's going on as they have defeated. We won a game. We beat the Houston Gamblers 13-3, and the Bandits swept the season series against Houston. My man, I am sitting here looking pretty because I predicted a dub. You predicted a big old fat L. So, Zach, why should you still be on the show here?
Why should I be on the show? Truthfully, I don't know at this point. With my predictions have been off the whole time, and they just continue to be off. I don't know. Like I said, though, I was glad I was wrong in this case. I said it when I made my prediction.
Yeah.
I wanted them to prove me wrong. But the more that we look into it, I do realize I have a record of not getting any of them even close to right.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait for you to predict whatever you're going to predict today. So, but overall thoughts, Zach. I mean, we went up 13-0 in this game, and then we didn't score another point. However, our defense didn't give up more than a field goal. And, you know, Houston should have kicked one more field goal, but also we had a missed field goal, so I don't know if those wash out or whatever, however you want to say it, but it should have been 16-3. It ended up being, 16-6. It ended up being 13-3. So however you want to splice it, that's a pretty close game. Overall thoughts on this game before we kind of dig into what went right, what went wrong?
Truthfully, brother, the most boring game of football I think I've ever watched.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good win. Our defense played really good, and that's, you know, like I'm trying to stay positive because it is a win, but it was a win because we played one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, again, we both were not very excited about the Houston Gamblers on offense.
Exactly.
And we'll kind of I'll break it down kind of into. I think the best way to do this, Zach, is let's take a look at some of the kind of the questions and big things that we had stated last week on the show, and kind of see what the answers to those questions were. We might have some surprises, but to be honest, it kind of went to plan. It just happened to be, I think our biggest question was, would the Bandits be able to do what they wanted to do versus kind of a last-second shenanigans the way that we beat Houston the first time. So Zach, we had said that the Houston Gamblers offense wasn't very good. Starting with their passing offense, we expected that Thorson and Behar would kind of split snaps. Thorson got hurt, so it was Behar behind there. We expected he would get a chance to play, but he ended up being the starter. So your thoughts on their passing game and how Behar did for the Gamblers?
I mean, passing game, it wasn't the worst. I mean, 19 for 34, 55.9% completion rate, 159 yards, no touchdown, but he did throw an interception. With a 55.9 QBR, I think that you could tell he's the backup without sounding like just a jerk to him. He wasn't as phenomenal as, I mean, I'll tell you, the first quarter, I thought we were going to have issues with him. The watching the first quarter, I was like, okay, yeah, because he'd get out and run, and he was possibly one of the quickest. It looked like one of the quickest guys on the field. I know that he's not, but it looked like it. In fact, I messaged you in the first quarter of the game and was like, Kenji's looking good, man. So as far as being like a dual threat, I think that he played that role decent. It just, didn't work out for him.
Yeah, to be honest with you, coming in and kind of pitching relief, I thought he did all right. Of course, I have no idea what he split reps or how long Thorson, if they just knew he wasn't going to play this week and maybe Behar got
Yeah.
all of the reps.
Yeah.
We have literally no idea about that. But going into this, we knew he'd get some shine, and he did okay. Like you said, the one interception was actually an overthrow as he was hit. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he embarrassed himself. I'll tell you that.
Agreed. 100%.
He didn't light the Bandits defense on fire. And to be honest, that's like, if we're saying that's our biggest weakness is probably our pass coverage. And he didn't light anyone on fire. There wasn't anyone with a crazy stat line. But the other question that we had was, we said that Houston's run game wasn't very good. So that's kind of why I thought, Thorson had kind of done a really good job against us in the first game, so much so that we had to like barely scrape by at the end of the game to get a victory. But Thorson wasn't here. Behar did okay, but I kind of think we thought that's where the game would be won or lost because their run game isn't very good. What did you see out of their running attack? And really, I mean, is this a case of
Lack
like
thereof.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So the question is like, was it our defense doing really, really well, or did they just not have a good rushing attack?
I mean, I feel like it had it had to have been a little bit of both because their leading rusher, and I'm going to take Behar out of it.
Yep.
Their leading rusher had 31 yards on 11 carries.
Yep.
If you go through and look, their Whaley had 2.6 yards per carry or 2.8 yards per carry. Dawkins had 3 yards per carry. Simmons had 1 rush, who I think he's a wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken. Had 1 rush for 11 yards. So, like, his average is obviously blown way out of proportion because of that. But I think that the combination of our defense being a good run support defense kind of limited their numbers because as far as like rush attempts per running back, their whole team had less than our top running back. So I just felt like they decided like, we're not going to run the ball this time. Let's try and throw the ball. Except, I mean, he had 35 pass attempts, so maybe that was just the game plan they went with.
No,
I don't know. Like I said, we can't really tell what the coach plans out throughout the week, but it just felt like they didn't want any part of our front seven.
Well, let's flip the script on that. I think before we get into the kind of the Bandits, which we might have a little bit more insight into good and bad that we had done, but you're absolutely correct. I think that we knew that our defense is our strong suit, and it was all about how limiting we can be to their offense. But on the other side, though, they have a pretty stifling defense too. And I had brought up that the Houston Gamblers they do create a lot of takeaways, and they do create a lot of pressure. Was there any big notes you wanted to talk about, or maybe even individual performances you wanted to talk about the Houston Gamblers defense?
Yeah, the Houston Gamblers defense, Mr. Odom.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah. He 5 tackles. 3 of those were tackle for a loss, and 3 of them were also sacks.
That's correct.
So we had talked about, and again, we're not going to talk about the Bandits yet, but that was another one of our questions was the offensive line, and I think Odom came in and basically did exactly what we expected to happen with their front seven as well.
Yeah.
He was just a freak of nature.
Yeah, Odom's probably the best defensive end in the USFL. I mean, he's a guy who has separated himself from the pack, not only statistically, but just when you watch him. I mean, he was splitting. It didn't matter if we threw a running back at him.
Yep.
He was swimming through the right side of the line. I mean, it was just Odom. He's making a huge case that he should be up into the league. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If he doesn't get a camp tryout, I would be shocked.
Yeah, I mean he's a bright spot on a otherwise kind of mediocre team, and I think that we knew that going in that he was going to be a problem, and even though we knew, and even after the first or second quarter, you knew he was a problem, and you couldn't do anything about him. So you just pretty much had to evolve and overcome. So Well, let's talk about how they did that, because you know what, Zach, the Bandits came out of this win, or out of this game with a dub, with a win. So I gotta say, hey man, you and I have been very, very critical of one Jordan Ta'amu. Okay, we've been very, very critical, and Mr. Ta'amu came off his worst game of the season last week. So let's start with the quarterback. I mean, look, fair or not, let's start with the quarterback. Jordan Ta'amu coming off his worst performance in a long time, if not ever, as a pro. How do you think he rebounded in this particular game?
He threw less interceptions. I mean,
That's true.
That's the only thing that I saw that was much better this week, was the decision making wasn't as bad. He still went 12 for 21, 57.1% completion rate, only 98 yards, 4.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That leaves his QBR around 65. Yeah. So it's like I wouldn't, as much crap as we give him for, being the reason we lose a game, I think that this was a game that we won, not necessarily because of him, but we won it with him.
Yeah, I think the game plan was take the ball out of his hand.
Yeah.
And it worked, at least in the way that you said, where he limited bad mistakes. He didn't. I mean, he threw 1 interception, but even that interception, I believe, was it was a tip ball.
I would say, I'm pretty sure it was a tipped ball.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was. He threw it to the wide receiver. I think it was a in stride. The guy was like slanting in from the outside. I believe it was off the fingertips of the wide receiver, and then it was into it. But it wasn't. It definitely wasn't an overthrow. It wasn't an underthrow. I mean, it was a regular throw. But I mean, last week we were sitting here going like, you're floating balls. You're just where are you throwing? You're throwing to dudes who aren't even there, and even if they were there, they were double coverage. Yeah. Oh my God. So it definitely wasn't that. Okay. But like you said, only 21 times they dropped back and threw the ball. We had a running back who had 20 attempts, and we'll get into him in a second. But very early on, Ta'amu was able to find Derek Dillon in the red zone for a touchdown. Yeah. Now, Mr. Dillon did a lot of the work the last few yards to get across the line, but I think Ta'amu did a better job of finding the quick outs, finding the guy he wanted. He didn't really stare down a lot of guys, but at the same time, it wasn't a world-beating performance.
Yeah, I mean, not to hate on him too much, he did better than last week. Like, I'm by no means saying he didn't have a better game than he did last week, but I guess, I feel like the more and more we talk about it, the more and more maybe I'm just not the biggest Ta'amu fan.
No, I've definitely. Well, we started out really excited about Jordan Ta'amu, and now that we're 8 weeks into it?
8 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that we're 8 weeks into it, that shine is worn off. It wore off pretty quickly, and
I mean, it's not as bad as Shea Patterson, but
agreed. I mean, look, we were sitting here a week ago saying that like if Brady White could throw a football, he'd be playing. It's kind of where I'm at. Is like last week he game managed and he managed it okay. I still think that ceiling, like, there's a little bit of part of me that's like, there's this, because he's touched it like more than once. He's gotten like just above that like game manager milquetoast average kind of thing. It's just that his gunslinger instincts, he kind of maybe reaches too far to the sun and gets burned. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it almost feels like he, without being too negative towards him, it almost feels like he's not as good as he thinks in his head that he is. So he almost tries to pull off these plays that you see like these NFL quarterbacks make, and they're like, oh, well, if he can do it, I can do it. If Mahomes can make a throw like this, I definitely can. And it's like, realistically, he's not on that level, and it's just kind of, I feel like maybe that's something that we're overlooking. Maybe the USFL defenses are just really good, and but it just feels like there's no way.
You have a point there. Look, because I was getting into a discussion with someone about the XFL defenses versus the USFL defenses, and I mean this is all just anecdotal, but I do think that the USFL has had tougher defenses than the XFL did.
It feels like it.
Just because, I want to sit here and say, oh, it's just the offenses aren't as good, but the rules were pretty much the same as the XFL. A lot of these players played in the XFL, especially on the offensive line, because there's just not a lot of top tier talent that can play line. So it's kind of a lot of the same guys. I mean, some of those guys played on the Battlehawks with Jordan Ta'amu, and they're here. But the defenses have been, I think, to be honest with you, watching this brand of football versus the XFL, it doesn't feel as spread them out, throw them a million times.
Yeah.
It feels like this is classic football. I mean, this really does feel that way. So one tenet of that kind of play that we're getting from the offense, that kind of old school football, is the running game. And this is a question that we said that we needed to get the running game going against this team. And I think more so for like just getting right as we're still in the playoff push. We needed to win, and this was the easiest game of the three that are on the schedule. So how did you feel that Juwan Washington and BJ Emmons did on the ground in this game?
I think as much as we talked about Ta'amu, game managing, that's kind of what it felt like with the running backs. But they got the job done. I mean, Washington had 60 yards. Emmons had 51. I think that's the first time that they've both had solid games. Like, I can't be mad at either one of them. And when I say they've both have solid games, I mean like both together, I should say, because they've both had their own separate, good games. But this is, if I'm not mistaken, by far the most attempts that Washington has had in a game. And 3 yards a carry, I can't be mad at it. It's not anything that's going to jump off the tape or off the paper at us, but he did what he had to do. He made, we won the game. We ran the clock out and we won the game. I can't be mad about it.
No, it's a good point you make. I mean, this is one of the few times I believe we've actually won the time of possession. It isn't something that I've tracked this whole season. And even as I'm saying this now, I would want to go back and see when we did or didn't. But this particular game, being that we won by 10 points, and it maybe should have been a little closer than that, or it definitely could have been closer than that.
Yeah.
Because we didn't break away. I mean, we didn't score a point in the second half. So the whole time I'm in the second half, I'm just sitting here going like, please just don't blow this. Please just don't blow this. And we won the time of possession. I mean, considering we had 2 less drives than the Gamblers, we had 3 more minutes on the clock that we owned the
exactly.
possession. So the same amount of plays, pretty much the same amount of yards, pretty much the same amount of yards per play, but it was all about our, what would we say, 111 total yards for the running backs, plus another 29, 30 yards that Ta'amu had throughout the game. But yeah, man, I thought they did good. I thought Washington and Emmons both did all right. Washington got 60 yards. He had an 18-yard run. That was the longest one he had. BJ Emmons was just kind of a blunt instrument, which I think we thought he was going to be, which is good.
Exactly.
I mean,
it worked.
It
worked.
You got a Phillips head screwdriver and you got a hammer. Like, let's go. And so I thought it was all right, man. Between the 32 rushing attempts, they got the job done. They got over 100 yards, and they owned.
I'm not mad about it.
I mean, what are you gonna do? I wish there was a 40-yard touchdown in there somewhere from Washington or whatever. But guess what, man? It wasn't a highlight game. It was about getting gritty and winning. So part of that grit is about the line. So we definitely have had our gripes about this offensive line, and I think that for them to get their rushing attack to get over 100 yards and to keep, I mean, I think they kept Jordan Ta'amu upright most of the time. They did give up an almost strip sack early in the game, and Chris Odom just pretty much sliced and diced them. But other than that, which is Odom is the best defensive end in the USFL right now, by my account.
Agreed, and I second that. And if we're saying it, it's true.
Oh, of course, we're never wrong, right? We're never wrong. But consider, I'm doing ifs, and I'll let you can tell me I'm completely wrong on all this. I'm okay with that. But considering you had the best defensive end in the game come in, and that they switched up the game plan, I think they also tried to make it where it was very simple for the offensive line, where they didn't have to sit there and block for 5 seconds, 6 seconds at a time. They just pretty much were running a power run or a toss crack, or it was Ta'amu making 1 or 2 decisions and getting the ball out 20 times, right? So with all that said, we both had said that this offensive line needs to step up. I think I know what you're going to say, but how did you feel about this offensive line?
I mean, I don't want to tell you you're wrong, because
you can.
I think so that's the thing. I don't think there's a right or a wrong in this instance. I think that depending on how you look at it, you could get that they were improved or that they weren't. For me, giving up 4 sacks is, whether we're playing the best defensive player in the league or not, 4 sacks is a lot to give up. They also had 2 extra tackles for a loss. Our running backs averaged, I believe I said 3 and then 4.2 yards a carry. It took us 32 attempts to get to 100 yards. That's a lot to get to 100 yards. If you see, an NFL running back that's throwing or that's running the ball that many times, they're going to have the game of their life, not a 60-yard rush, So for me, I didn't see much improvement, but I do agree that there wasn't as much time for them to hold the line this week, which I think is great for the future. If we have a second season of the USFL, if we have a third season, I think that that's how the offense needs to be run in the future, for sure, where there's not as much, we need you to hold the line for 4 seconds while Ta'amu makes a decision.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get into maybe what you saw in this game, because I think there was a concerted effort to change a little bit. I mean, through 7 weeks, we've seen the same offense. It's the same offense, for good or bad. This time there was a different mixture of play calls. There was definitely a better, whether that's through injury or whatever, but for now we finally saw 2 running backs get their shine, and we saw them handing the ball and giving that ball to them on the ground versus Jordan Ta'amu trying to launch 40 balls in the air, and throwing interceptions or touchdowns, right? It's been good and bad, and I think they kind of tried to limit that. But the main event of this game is obviously our continued amazing defense that we had, and this was a big point that I said last week that this defense needed to pitch a shutout and create a crazy thing that's absolutely legal in this game, and that's called turnovers. They needed to create them. We can do it. Every other team did it, so it's good to see us finally do it. But what are your thoughts? You can go as big or small as you want about the defense. What do you want to talk about first?
Butler is a beast.
Man.
Butler is a beast.
Buddy.
Christian Sam, obviously not in this game, and I'm sure you guys have seen the news. He's no longer with the Bandits. Us here at RBLR Sports are not happy about that. We were quite the Christian Sam fan club here. So that sucks, but man, Butler fills that void as good as he can with 12 tackles, eight of those solo, 1 tackle for a loss. I think he's doing everything right. This is his second game with the team. In both weeks, he's had 10 or more tackles. So he's an absolute animal. And Michael Scott getting in there with 2 sacks. Another guy who's just kind of showing out. I think that our defense, especially our front 7, played just phenomenally.
Buddy, Butler crushed it. That 1 tackle for loss might as well have been worth like 10 points by itself, because It's 4th and 1, and this was a cool. I mean, Houston was. I mean, they were trying to win this game. Let's
Yeah,
just be
100%.
honest. They didn't come out trying to be like, oh, who cares? We're our season's done and da da da. They were trying to play spoiler. They could have taken us out of the playoffs, or pretty damn close, by getting it done by themselves. And Butler just on 4th and 1, man. He comes up and just crushes it, shutting down the rush attempt in the second quarter. I believe it's the second quarter, but it was early in the game.
Yeah, it definitely was.
And this is right before halftime, and it's the Bandits are up. They're either up 10-0 or 13-0 at the time. So they're in desperation mode. They need to keep these drives alive, and it's like we pretty much knew what was coming, and here comes Butler, laying the wood. It was a no doubter, and it was phenomenal. I mean, it's just one of those plays where it's the Oklahoma drill, and he won. So that was phenomenal. I have to say too. I mean, our boy Reed. We're also. I think you and I are both because I think
very high on
we
him.
were both secondary players. So I think you see Reed going up there just laying wood. Sometimes
Reed and Meeks, man.
Oh man, yeah, dude. And sometimes sometimes Reed is a headhunter out there, and if it were the 80s, if this podcast was in the 80s, we'd be like, oh, it's just black and blue football, brother. Like, let's go. But he still has that. He's like from a different era. He's from a different time.
100%. It's like he doesn't care about the new rules in football,
brother. And go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say he's gonna, reminds me of a more controlled Vontez Burfict out of the Bengals, where he's just gonna play how he plays. He'll take the fine, doesn't matter. He's just for lack of a better term, a badass,
dude. And it's like we're saying this all as positives, and really, that's maybe the one trait he needs to work on if he wants to get to the next level again.
Exactly.
Because he wants to lay the wood, and look, man, I think if he can control that, he's got that drive, he's got that passion, he's got he brings it as a safety. I love it as a run stopping, box defender. Let's go. Another guy though, speaking of the defensive backs here, is Anthony Chaffee, man. It was a little bit of a gift of a bad overthrow right to him. He got to play Kevin Kiermaier a little bit right in center field, and he got to take that one. And I mean, he was looking to take it to the house, but unfortunately, it was not a miracle on that one. So. But Chaffee, look, turnovers, baby. How about that? What are we doing?
I will take one tackle on a turnover any game. I don't care how poorly you play in that game. You get me a turnover at this rate, as a Bandits fan, you give me a turnover, I'm gonna love you. I don't care what else you do in that game.
Well, and to be honest, like the D-backs didn't get a lot of stats because Behar dropped back 34 times, but he was pretty wild himself, and I wish they had more stats about like who defended who on a target or something like that. But when you look at the receiving, pretty much every receiver either had one or two targets that didn't hit the mark. I mean, their leading receiver had 44 yards on 8 targets. So
yeah, and realistically, we only had 4 pass defense. So Behar was 19 for 34.
Yeah.
So what? 11 of those other passes just weren't there. Realistically, it's not, like you said, we didn't have very much of a chance to get too many turnovers in this game.
Well, and I love it that because this was a big thing that we were saying, like, guys, it just they have to get turnovers. So if the team, because last week it should have been worse, but like over the last 3 weeks, we definitely have seen this defense that when they've been giving gifts, when they've been given these floating interception balls that just have a rainbow trailing off the back end of that star-spangled football, and they just can't, they drop it, they don't get there, they don't do whatever. Like, there's been numerous times that throughout this season, that they just didn't come up with it. And so it's good to good to have Chaffee get one, man.
Exactly, 100%.
So I'm hoping it just breaks the seal. The one last thing I want to talk about before we get into the future is we also gave up an onside kick. Sorry. And I hate this because like we gave up. We're the ones that like the double pass. We were the first one against us, and probably there was another. I think the 3-point play happened against us, and we're these like trendsetters for getting all this stuff done to us. And then here the damn kicker kicks the ball after making a field goal, after making the 3 points that he put up on the board. He kicks the damn ball, runs 10 yards, makes the recovery, and actually takes a pretty for a kicker, takes a pretty damn big hit. And it just, the last thing I want to say is that in special teams, which our special teams, I mean, we missed a kick ourselves. What wasn't phenomenal. I mean, if you look at also our dude, Mr. Wright, he had a 64-yard punt again, so he's still on point. But,
yeah, he's averaged out almost 50 yards this game, 49.8.
But he's an NFL punter, man. He needs to be in the league too. So
agreed, 100%.
He's killing it. Rousa missed a field goal. We already kind of talked about that, but everyone else, man, I know it's unexpected, but they're down by 2 scores, and you just have to be ready for. They're going for it on 4th and 1. They are desperate. Like this, at any moment, you needed to be ready, and unfortunately. We had like Cheyenne O'Grady was on that hands team up front. It's not like they didn't.
He got the tackle if I'm not mistaken.
It's like they know that this is a possibility. I mean, and unfortunately this one bit us. So that's the kind of little things that if I'm an opposing coach, whether this week or next week, look, every little bit matters, and so it didn't bite us in the butt this week. And they got the offside or onside kick and so on and so forth. But this is the kind of thing that you stick away by going like, oh, okay, they might not be ready for anything at any time, right? And that's a coaching thing. So we'll see how that goes in the future.
I'm sure we could talk plenty about our coaching.
Well, the one thing the coaches could do to get back on my good side is order a t-shirt from shop.rblrsports.com. There's a link right in the description, and we got so many cool t-shirts that celebrate and are inspired by not just the Bandits, but also all of the Tampa Bay teams. We at RBLR Sports, we cover every single professional team that we do, whether it's the other football team that plays down the road from where I live, whether it's the baseball team in St. Pete. We got the Rowdies down there in Al Lang Stadium. We've got, I mean, anything and everything your heart desires. We have t-shirts in your favorite colors or your favorite teams that are representing and inspired by your favorite teams and players. So hop on down to shop.rblrsports.com. There is a link in the description. And you know what? If you use the promo code BANDITBALL, BANDITBALL, you're going to get 10% off your order. So that would be a phenomenal, man, if we could get Todd Haley or Pepper Johnson or whoever, or you know what, dude, here we go. Tyler Rousa kicks a field goal to win the game and send us closer to the playoffs, and he takes off his he just rips off the pads, and there's a barely legal football shirt underneath the pads, baby. I'd be jumping up and down with joy. How about you, buddy?
Oh no, I would be ecstatic. Get us out there a little bit, I would appreciate it.
Well, we made a little bit of news ourselves as an organization. We did. We broke a little bit of news this week. And, we don't have to get too into it, but the news, unfortunately, was that our leading tackler as of last week, our starting middle linebacker, our stalwart, just best defender that unquestionably, I think you and I are the leaders of the Christian Sam fan club. Christian Sam, top 10 tackler, number 9 in the league, was inactive for last week's game, and our defense did fine, right? We just went through all of the good things that we just did. But it was noticeable that Christian Sam started, then all of a sudden was inactive, and now has been released and picked up by the team that we are playing this week. So, man, Christian Sam is no longer a bandit. How does that feel?
Yeah, it feels miserable.
Yeah.
Like I just it's upsetting because Christian Sam was literally my. I mean, again, you said it. We were the leaders of the Christian Sam fan club here. Like,
Yeah.
was my favorite player on the team. Him and JF3. So it's like to see him go. Could you imagine Anthony Butler and Christian Sam on the same defense? It's just like it just doesn't make any sense to me, man. I know. Yeah, it's upsetting just because he was the guy on that defense.
Now the question, because this is the thing that people have been inboxing me since we first broke the news, is that we can't go into the exact specific details. However, publicly there was a source that was putting out the information that there was a question about Christian Sam being actually injured. Publicly, the source did say that he is banged up just like every other footballer, and he practiced. According to this source, he did practice. This was all public. That he did practice during the week. Now, we as an organization, since the USFL does not put out a practice report every day like the NFL or something, we cannot confirm that he played every day. Okay, the source said that he practiced in full and was put on the injury report after participating. We cannot confirm that. However, publicly he said that, but he went from starting to being inactive to now being cut.
Real quick, I will say everything else that source has said that is public has come to fruition and been accurate. So as much as we can't confirm it, everything else he said has been true.
Yeah, and of course there are things I cannot go into publicly, but I did more research, did more digging, and so there are questions. That's basically what I can say, is that until we get the other side of the story, nothing has been said untrue. However, there is still, I would love if the league or the team were more open to availability. Like, we do not have the ability, other than me just hitting, and I've tried, other than hitting them up on social media.
Yeah, and that is such a crappy part about this is us as a podcast. Like, we're not the biggest podcast in the world, but
of course
we are technically, media members of the USFL. Like, right. We get all the media stuff. Why couldn't they open up a Zoom chat or some sort of something to where we can have access to be able to speak to people with how bad their communication is from the league? I'm just saying, not from our team necessarily, but from the league, the communication is awful. Like, we get 4:00 emails on injury reports and stuff. It's like, come on, now I'm going on a rant.
No, you're good. What I'll say, because we do have contact with the league, and what I can say is they are working hard. Unfortunately, I think that they're in a bad position. It's a very small team of people that are trying to do the entire PR and social media and team updates and injury report. They're trying to do all of this for 8 different teams in a league. Now, even the most talented among us, right, would be having a hard time with this. I do think there are things they could do better. However, I'm giving them a leeway. If this league goes to a second year or beyond, this is definitely something I believe they need to invest in. They need to have for every team, to be honest with you, every team needs to have at least one liaison that an organization like us can reach out to on a personal one-to-one basis and be like, hey, can I get a statement about this injury? Can I get a statement from the coach? Is there a Zoom? Is there a post-game press conference we can attend? Or at least, can I I mean, like, I would even be okay with, like, hey, I want to email you 5 questions and please give me your answers, you know? But there have been times that we have heard things.
Exactly.
There have been things that we want to report, but I really cannot get confirmation until a day later or 2 days later. And it's, in the day and age we live in, unfortunately, that's not up to par. So, with all that said, let's get into some of, and I say that to go into the next thing, which is like, we still don't have the updates this week. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know who's been practicing. I cannot tell you, Zach, who's on the inactive or active roster that has changed from last week. So the best that I can do is just say maybe the free agents that we picked up last week, which is a quarterback, Guy Myers, a wide receiver, D. Anderson, and a defensive tackle, Suleiman Kamara. Maybe they'll play this week.
Didn't Kamara play it last week?
Oh yeah, maybe Kamara did play. So,
yeah, he had a sack. He was one of the 4 sacks.
You're absolutely right. But the one update that we know, other than our boy Christian Sam, who is a New Orleans Breaker now, Corbin Kaufusi, he of the famous fat guy catch, and offensive tackle, he has been transferred to the inactive injured reserve roster. That we do know for sure. However, still inactive until we are told otherwise. Matt Burrell Jr., offensive lineman, tight end Daquan Hampton, who has been a key player in certain areas this year. Christian Campbell and Rennell Hall, who are big-time parts of our secondary. Obi Melifonwu, who was our number 1 safety taken off the board. Trey Mintner at running back, Jeff McCullough at defensive end, and Hassis Dubois as a wide receiver. But all of those, until we're told otherwise, are still on the inactive roster. So that's kind of what we had to go with while we thought about our preview for this week.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even have anything else to say on that because it is like you said, it makes from my standpoint, we want to do the best that we can as media members, as a podcast, as a whole. We want to do the best we can with bringing you guys listening, the fans of the show, the fans of the USFL. We want to do our part and bring the best stuff that we can bring. And it's we can't do that and be 100% accurate with what we're doing when these guys aren't. And again, it's not necessarily just their fault. They should have a media guy for every team.
Agreed.
That's how it should be.
It'd be a lot easier.
But it just would make more sense. You wouldn't have game-winning posts on teams that haven't even played a game in the USFL. But anyway, let's get into this. Let's get into this next game. I want to hear your thoughts on it. What's going to happen?
Let's go. This is the biggest game of the year. What more can we say, Mr. Blaine? It is the Bay Breaker Brawl Part 2.
Try saying that 3 times fast.
I couldn't even say it. I screwed up already. But here's the point, Zach. If the Bandits lose this game, it's all over. They're out of the playoffs. It's win or literally play one more game, but who cares at this point? If the Bandits win, though, they still need to win next week or have the Breakers collapse, which would be 3 weeks in a row. They would be the San Diego Chargers of the USFL.
Yeah, exactly.
Just losing, and letting another team get into the playoffs. But throughout this year, here's the thing. New Orleans has beaten Philadelphia in week 1. They absolutely demolished us in week 2, 34-3. They lost to Birmingham, beat Houston, which, Houston's a lower level team. They lost to New Jersey. They beat Pittsburgh, Michigan, which, man, I wish we could have those 2 games for the next 2 games.
Right,
and then they lost to Birmingham. So here's the thing, man. They beat Philadelphia week 1, which, a lot's changed in week 1. And they beat us in week 2, but we have been mid-level, inconsistent team. Other than that, I don't see a standout victory. If anything, I see losses against the good to better teams that they're going to end up playing if they make the playoffs. So I think New Orleans is just as much up in the air as we are, and we're on a winning, and they're they lost last week to Birmingham 10-9. They're missing field goals left and right. It was just a crazy game. I thought it was going to be a way different game than it was, but here we are. New Orleans might not be firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, but you said it best. The more concerning thing for them is like no impressive wins, but the losses they've had have been to good teams. And unfortunately, I don't know that I put us in that good team category right now.
That's fair. Well, technically, Mr. Blaine, this is a matchup of the two best quote-unquote passers in the league. If you go by way of total passing yards, Sloter has 1,750 yards, and Tamu is the second player in the new USFL to go over 1,500 yards. So, man, this should be just a passing clinic out here, huh?
We can call it that if you want, man. However you want to look at it, bud.
Well, all jokes aside, let's talk about New Orleans offense. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I believe that they're a pass-first organization. They really
100%.
They really could not get the run game going against a very strong and stout Birmingham defense. Ellis and Jones split carries last week, but neither got it going. Combined, they had 68 total yards. But it's for Sloter. Sloter's a dude who he was the offensive player of the week 2 weeks ago, and they throw it, they fire it. He's been one of the standouts. He's kind of the Jordan Tamu or the PJ Walker of the USFL this year. He's the guy who they've put the ball in his hands, and he's decided to distribute it pretty evenly.
Yeah, he's making it happen, and like you said, their rush game, their leading rusher has 519 yards on the season. We're 8 weeks in, so he's, that's not a very good total to have 8 weeks in. But Sloter is slowly showing that maybe he should have been the number one overall quarterback taken off the board, in my opinion.
Well, what is it that you, if you just talking about their passing attack, what is it that you think they try to accomplish, or at least are there some standouts that you are worried about on their offense?
Yeah, on their offense, I think that it just right off rip, you have to. I don't want to just keep saying his name, but you have to worry about Sloter. Like, he can rush the ball when he has to. He's not going to be a Teamu fast or anything, but he is mobile enough to get out of the pocket when needed. So I feel like he's someone you have to worry about, and he spreads the ball out decently. Dixon has Johnny Dixon is one of the receivers, got 4 receiving touchdowns. The receiving yards leader for them is Jonathan Adams. He's got almost 400 yards receiving. So it's just, it feels like he spreads the ball out so nicely that it kind of, it doesn't leave you like, all right, we have to focus on this guy. And that's an issue that I see, because if we don't have to focus on one guy, we don't know where the ball is going to go, which is a great offensive game plan to have.
Absolutely. Even if you just look at last week, you had Sal Cannella, he's a tight end for them, 9 targets. He ended up with 6 receptions for 60 yards. So even if you shut down the corners, there's a check down, or at least there's a release option. But you talked about Adams. Nothing last week. Look, they only scored 9 points on the game, but when you look at the game plan, I think it's going to be the same against us, which is exactly what you said, Zach, is that spread the ball out. Adams, 8 targets. He ended up with 5 receptions. Dixon, 8 targets. He ended up with 4 receptions. Taylor had 6 targets. Taylor being Taiwan Taylor, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 76 yards. But most of his was a 44-yard bomb. So they're looking short, they're looking medium, they're looking deep, they're looking to spread the ball out. So I think this is a huge game that, if the front 7, which we know, and of course our defense is our rock, all right? So if our front 7 is able to get to Sloter, he's shown he's human. Last week, the reason they only scored 9 points is because Sloter made some mistakes. He had 3 interceptions last week against, again, a strong Birmingham defense, but he throws some floaters, buddy, especially when he's getting hit. Especially when he's getting hit. He threw one that was just like, I mean, we talk about Kevin Kiermaier being in center field. I mean, this thing was like, you could have put your hands up and called some people off from it before it hit you. So there is a Sloter, as much as he's racked up yards and racked up statistics and done good in this league, last week showed me that he's human, man. When you play a top-level defense, and to be honest with you, like, our defense is a playoff defense, like, without a doubt. Just they've done so good all year.
Our front seven is a playoff front seven.
Sure, you know, but you can't hit if you can't throw if you get hit. So
that's a good point.
So if they can do that,
that's a good point.
Basically, I'm like, if our defense can just do the average performance that they have put together, it's been good enough to stifle good teams. Like, when you look at them, when you look at the Breakers, like, they do give up 22 points to Birmingham, right, which has a good defense. They gave up 27 points to New Jersey, who has a good defense, and on the flip side, they're scoring less than 20 points. Like, in the Birmingham loss, they scored 13 points. In the New Jersey loss, they scored 17 points. And then last week, they only scored 9 points, and they lost 10-9. So there's a very key, like, and every win they have is 34, 23, 26, 31. It sounds really basic, but we have a team where we do not give up. I mean, we give up points, but I think that we've shown we can create turnovers now. We have been able to put some good offenses on the brakes here in the last month, and I believe that there's a possibility we can do that here. But on the flip side, it all comes down to our offense. And so at the end of the day, as good as our defense is, we have to score more points than the other team. So what stands out about New Orleans' defense that you want to talk about?
I got one name for you. Bellamy.
Man.
He gave us hell last time we played. I think he's going to continue that. He's a badass, and I also would like to point out that if Christian Sam is playing, I think he's going to come out with a chip on his shoulder and prove that he is one of the best middle linebackers in the game and should be playing at the next level.
It's so crazy because this team already has 4 really good linebackers.
Yeah, exactly.
They already have it, and now they have Christian Sam, which even we were talking about this off air, but like, I don't know if it's just a Bandits thing where we usually, if we pick a dude up, he doesn't suit up immediately. He kind of waits a week and then we put him in there. Yeah. Christian Sam already knows our plays, right? Like, whether it's scout team or whatever. I mean, there's not a very big roster in the USFL, so our defense is probably the defense that's been running against our offense in practices.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
And it's hard enough even knowing your playbook, let alone having a separate scout team. It's not like, I mean, I'd be very surprised if the only quarterback he's seen in practice was Brady White or something like that. Like
100%.
So, here comes Christian Sam, who, even if he's just in a sweatsuit, he's so valuable on the sidelines against this
100%.
team. Even if it's just him,
terrifying.
It's horrible. It sucks so bad. But here's the thing: they already have an embarrassment of riches at the linebacker position. You talked about David Bellamy, man. This is the outspoken heel of the USFL, especially in our last meeting. But he's one of the best pass rushers in the USFL. He created a strip sack fumble last week, so he's still on top of his game. And that's not even talking about Nigel Chavis, Vontae Diggs, and Jared Fernandez.
There we go. That was the other one.
Dude,
I'm glad you said his name.
Dude, these guys, all of these guys would fit right in on our, like, black shirt defense or whatever we're calling these guys. That
100%.
Are just like, they are dirty, they're nasty, and I love them. And they're like, it's going to be a tough task, man. And then even in the secondary, look, Jordan Ta'amu's going to have to play really well. And when you've got there isn't like, I mean, maybe Zach, tell me if I'm wrong, but maybe Derek Dillon is like our number one threat as a wide receiver. But
I mean, yeah.
So you're probably going to put Neville Clark on him. If I'm New Orleans, Neville Clark is a dude who is swarming in crossing routes, and if you already know that the line can't stay up for 4 seconds, it's going to be a lot of slants and screens and crosses and stuff like this. And you've got a dude, Neville Clark, who's going to eat your lunch. He's going to get in your face. He's going to beat you up 5 yards off the line. He can stay with the man, and he likes to get a little dirty, which, as we're both secondary guys, man, you got to get there sometimes. And
it's going to be either Nevin Clark or Ike Brown on him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Ike Brown is their more, man-to-man, most interceptions on the team. I mean, granted, it's only 2, but they have a lot of guys with 1 interception.
Yeah.
But I could see Ike Brown playing a difference in this game as well.
Another name that I wanted to bring up was Adonis Alexander, who this guy's more of a tackling secondary member. I mean, he can make tackles, and he's a dude who spent time. He was with the Washington Commanders, he was with the LA Rams, and recently he was with the New Orleans Saints before coming to the New Orleans Breakers. But he's another dude. Because, I mean, look, last week, if I look at Birmingham, I actually think Birmingham should have blown out New Orleans last week.
Agreed.
Watching the game back, between missed field goals, which was just both teams were just missing field goals. New Orleans, man, here's the scary part, is that Birmingham was in the red zone on the goal line, and New Orleans created a red zone fumble very early on the goal line. They created strip sack, which I talked about. Devin Bellamy created a strip sack. And then on one of those slant routes, they got a tip deflection for an interception off of Jamar Chase. So we're talking, this game could have been way more in Birmingham's favor, and it should have been. However, this defense created 3 turnovers right there. And it should have been way out of hand. I mean, they lost by 1 point, but Birmingham had a chance.
Yeah, Birmingham is one of those teams that, granted, they're 8-0. They should have lost a few games at this point with how close some of these games have been. But I think that this defense is going to be a lot to overcome. Honestly.
So if you're the offense, like, what are you looking for? Like, what are you hoping happens that we can do?
We're gonna have to run it a lot like we did last week. It's gonna have to be a ground and pound game. It's probably, if it goes the way that Tampa needs it to, it's gonna be a low scoring game, and we're gonna have to our defense is gonna have to, like you said last week, pitch a shutout. They're going to have to pull a Shane McClanahan and throw 8 innings of 2-hit ball. Like, it's got to be – they have to shut them out.
I'm going to go one step further on that. This week, we need a perfect game. I mean, we really do.
Yeah.
Both of us have been very critical at everyone on this team at one point or another. Pretty much – I mean, it's a playoff game. It is what it is. So if you're not hype, if you're not ready for this game, man, you have a character flaw. On top of that,
exactly.
When you get on the field, I mean, it just has to happen. Like, the defense has to be what they are on average, and to win, they're going to need to be more. They're going to need to still be amazing, and they're going to need to create turnovers that put our offense in a better position. But this isn't a game that we can slack off with the offense too. If we only score 10 points, we're not winning this game. Like as good as our defense is, they're going to give up points, and our offense is going to have to, whether it's, I mean, look, there's a couple different ways. If they're going to eat the clock up and have 40 minutes of possession and just like, even if they average 4 yards a carry like they did last week, and they end up with owning the possession the entire game, and okay, great, we win it in like a 9-6 field goal battle. cool. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. So
No.
it's going to be a mixture of long, sustained drives by this offense, which we've seen bits and pieces, but not consistent. It's going to take a strong running attack from both Emmons and Washington. It's going to take more than O'Grady and Dillon on it. Like here, the big thing, man. The trick plays ain't going to work.
No.
It's going to have to be solid execution.
Continually say that.
I keep saying it, but like they keep handing the ball off and doing weird stuff, and John Franklin's also one of these guys that's just going to have to play a perfect game.
Step it up.
He cannot fumble like he did in the fourth quarter last week. We only won by 10 points, and we gave the ball up 2 times that we shouldn't have, right?
Exactly.
We talked about the Tamu interception, but Franklin just dropped the ball in the fourth quarter, and it's like, if it's a 1-score game against the Breakers in the fourth quarter, I think we've done a good job, but the little things, and every single one of these little things is going to matter. So I said that Tampa needs to play a perfect game. Is there anything you want to add to that before we get into score predictions?
I was just gonna say I'm ready to hear your score prediction because I think that you said it perfect. They have to play a perfect game.
To be honest with you, I don't expect it to happen. I have a 20-13 loss. It really hurts to say that.
Okay.
I believe that if we come out playing the way that we have played in the past 8 weeks, we will lose this game.
I agree with the loss.
I just think that if this is the average output that they've put together, I think New Orleans is ready for this game. Look, like last week, it's kind of like they needed to win, but Birmingham isn't really stepping off the gas. They made their own mistakes, and New Orleans the defense came to play. They just got to figure it out. The problem is that they're going to be playing a lesser team in the Bandits, and some of those mistakes that New Orleans made last week might not bite them in the butt this week, unless they're playing a perfect game. I want to be wrong. I want to be so wrong. I want the defense to be firing on all cylinders. I want us to create turnovers. I want us to run the ball for 150 yards. I want Jordan Tamu to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. All of those things I want so badly, and we've been asking for them, and we just haven't got them. So maybe we get one. Maybe we get one of those things.
One or the other. It's one or the other. You get this, but you can't get these.
Right. Well, guess what? In this game, I want my cake and I want to eat it too. And
You're damn straight.
If they can't do
Preach it.
Just guess what, buddy? If they can't do that, then they lose. If they can do that, I believe they can beat the Breakers, man. This is a run they can go on, and they can finish this season very, very strong, but I need to see all of it at the same time. We can't just have good running. We can't just have good passing. We can't just have good defense. We need all of it, and we need all of it for 4 quarters. What say you, Mr. Blaine?
So I agree that they're going to lose. I don't think that Tampa has shown me enough to where I'm confident that they are a better team than they were when we played them the first time.
Yep.
So I'm going with a 28-10 loss. A bit bigger than your deficit.
Yeah.
But I'm doing that solely based off of I feel that our defense is really good, but we've been to the point where we're getting just like our guys are getting overworked on defense. So I don't think that they're going to beat us by as much as they did last time.
Yeah.
Because it was a 31-point loss last time. I'm going to give them an 18-point loss this time at 28-10.
Man, I mean, as crazy as what we just said, New Orleans is only a 3.5-point favorite in this game.
There's the over-unders and the favorite numbers this season have been insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, asinine.
It's they're setting this at I'm looking at the Fox Sports lines, and considering Fox Sports owns the league, so it's like Breakers 3.5-point favorites, man. I would take that, because even if it's close, it's going to take everything. It's going to take every bullet in the chamber to beat them. And I said that last week, and we at least had okay offense with a great defensive effort. We're going to need to see that offense this week. Otherwise, it ain't
We're
going to
need to see great and great. There can't be great and okay. It needs to be great and great this game.
Well, let's talk about the rest of the league as we wrap up here. I want to thank everyone who's been listening this far. If you're making it this far in our show, you are the real MVPs. And I just say, please, wherever you're listening to this, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, there's a little like button. There's a subscribe button. Click that bad boy and make sure you get all of our content. Because even if the Bandits lose the way we think they're going to lose, or have predicted them to lose, we're still going to be here for the rest of the USFL season talking about it all the way until the trophy is raised. So please give us the like and subscribe. We're also on social media. We are at RBLR Bandits as part of the RBLR Sports Network. So, Mr. Blaine, looking around the entire league, you were saying you didn't have much in the way of changes, if at any, in your power ranking.
Yeah, I think the only change that I have was I dropped Tampa down to 5 and moved, and then I moved. Actually, I think Tampa may have already been 5. Now that I think about it, but I moved New Orleans down to 4 and Philadelphia up to 3.
See, I have them at 2. I have Birmingham still at the top. I have Philadelphia at 2. The Stars, and this is it's because of their offense. They're the one team in this league that just puts up 30-something points at will. It doesn't matter who they play. It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, we're looking at their last games. They put 46 on Michigan, which you should do. They put 35 on Houston, which we barely beat them by 10 points. They put 35 on us. They still put 17 in a losing effort against Birmingham a month ago. But they've only scored under 20 points 3 times this season. Okay. So whether it's win or loss, they still put up points, and most of the time they're winning, and that's why I have them at 2. Because when you're looking at the rest of the league, I mean, like New Jersey, I don't believe they can win a shootout. New Orleans is just as shaky as we are. I have them at 4. And then I have Tampa, Houston, Michigan, Pittsburgh, which I think we're on the same page on there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thoughts on? I mean, I think that's our only difference. Is I have Philly at 2, you have them at 3, but we've both dropped New Orleans down to 4 and Tampa at 5, wherever that was last week.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily disagree with Philadelphia at 2. Like I think that the 7-1 record for New Jersey is a little bit dramatic, but they are on a 6-game or a 7-game win streak because they lost their first game. So that's mostly the reason I have them at 2, is because it's continued success. It's not like they've won 3 games, lost 1, won 3 games. So it's just a continued success. Whereas Philadelphia, who I will say, they're putting up more points than probably anyone in the league. I'd imagine they're probably the highest scoring offense in the league. I guess I have more faith in Perez than I do Cookus at this point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Mr. Blaine, any final thoughts before we wrap this up and to get ready for a playoff game, man? This is a playoff game, baby.
Yeah, exactly. No final thoughts aside from, like you said, we appreciate all of you guys listening. It truly is the reason why we do it. We love the feedback from you guys and just being able to put this out for you guys. So if you guys could just follow us on social medias, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And wherever you're listening to this, just leave us a like and let us know how much you love it. We appreciate you guys, and I'll send it over to Eureka for the last word. Let's ride, baby.
Look, if you've listened this long and you didn't already tune out when I was talking crap about Tamu or saying that we're going to lose, hear my words now. I am always wrong, baby. And I want to be sorry. I was right last week that we won and we were going to beat
I've not stopped being wrong,
buddy.
So.
And I'm so happy that you picked a loss this week, because by that token, you picked a loss. I picked a loss. We're both going to be wrong. The Bandits are going to figure it out. They're going to win this damn game. They're going to beat the New Orleans Breakers. It doesn't matter if Christian Sam knows the lottery numbers or the plays that we have. No, obviously I'm saying all that to hype us up, but it's not impossible, okay, guys? It's not impossible. We can do this. So, for all my Bandits fans out there, let's do this. Let's get the win. Bring the good vibes. Let's do this. Let's make it a very, very, very interesting final week in this league. And for let's at least make one more game worth watching. And for all of Bandit Nation, I say one thing, and that is, let's ride.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.